All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and go to the next part of our meeting. And if you look at the agenda, it says on there that we're going to be talking about the school safety codes. Um, the district looked at their policies and they realized that we did not have a uniform system for all the schools as far as code words. And as you also know, has been two school shootings in the past year. There's been the one in Connecticut where many children were shot and killed, and then some teachers and principals. And then even more recently, within the past week, there was the shooting in Georgia. So the district took a hard look at their policies, and they decided that they need to have uniform codes for every single school. All right, if you look on the handout that is on your sheet, you will see those. Excuse me, you will see those codes. The first one is evacuation. An evacuation will happen if there's a fire drill, or if there's a fire, or if there's like a bomb threat and we need to evacuate the school. Miss Maria, if it's a fire drill, will come over the intercom and she will say evacuation fire drill or evacuation fire. And if that's the case, then you need to take your kids to the designated area outside. Now, last year when we had a bomb threat in Central, we had to move the 5th grades from the mobiles into the building. Miss Maria called out there and she said, evacuation, will you please take your students inside? Now, when that happened, we had somebody at the doors letting them know where to go. So there is a little bit of difference, so you need to be listening. It's not just evacuation, so she'll either say evacuation fire or evacuation and then tell you where to go. The second one is a lock out. She will come over the intercom, Miss Maria will, and she will say lock out. What that means is there's something going on outside where we need to keep all the kids inside. If you remember last year at the beginning of the school year when there was the hostage situation about a block away from school and the SWAT team was called in, how nobody was allowed to go in or out of the building, that would be a situation that would call for a lockout. The third one is a lockdown. A lockdown is when there is a threat in the building. She will come over the intercom and she will say lockdown. When that happens, you need to turn off the lights and get your kids out of sight. Now I know we're kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't have doors on our classrooms, but what we've talked about, what you need to do is that back workroom area that every classroom has, you need to take your kids back there and lock the door and just stay quiet and stay out of sight. Now, another really important thing with the lockdown is you do not let anybody in. If I'm coming and I knock on the door and I'm saying, let me in, you do not let me in because you never know. Somebody may be forcing me to do this. The cops, they will have the keys to all of the rooms and they will be the ones that will let you in. All right, so some of you may be wondering, well, why we're in elementary school. Why do we need to really worry about this other than the evacuation? Well, because truth is, even though you may not think it happens in younger grades, it does. So, for example, in 2008, there was a group of 9 third graders, who had written down a plot to tie up their 3rd grade teacher and to kill her because they were upset with her. I know, just take a second and think about that. 3rd grade. 3rd grade. I know, when I was a 3rd grade teacher, I never thought of that. But now that I know that, you just have to realize that, you never know when it's going to happen. All right. So let's talk about some things that we need to look for with the kids. First thing you need to look for is writing. If they're writing a story and you feel like it's just a little more violent than it should be, then you need to think about that and really look at the kid and look at the writing and be like, well, is this something that we need to look at a little more closely? Because most likely you may need to. Because think back to Columbine in 1999. The boys that did that, they had violent writing. They turned in violent writing about killing people to their teacher. Their teacher didn't do anything about it. They were a little nervous and kind of curious, but they didn't do anything about it. So that's step one. If you see them, or if you see writing that just seems more violent than it should be, definitely kind of keep an eye on that student and look at them. Second thing you need to look for is them talking about it. I know, you may think, well, why would somebody talk about it? I mean, if they're going to do it, why would they want to talk about it and get caught? Well, sometimes kids, they just want to brag to people. In 2008, there was an incident in Cleveland where somebody was talking about bringing a gun to school and killing people. Multiple people heard this student talking about that, but they didn't do anything. A few days later, that same student came in and shot people and killed people. So if they would have just reported it to people, then it could have been stopped. Okay, so then the big thing you have to realize, or sorry, the big thing you need to think about is, well, should I report it? Do I think this is serious enough to report it? My answer is always yes. Yes, yes, yes. Because the way I look at it is, would you rather apologize for being wrong, or would you rather apologize for not doing something about it when you were thinking about it? I'd rather apologize to a parent for wrongly being over worried about a student than apologizing to a parent because their child has been shot and killed by somebody who I thought might be doing something, but I decided not to report it. So, it's not only our responsibility. One thing you need to talk to your students about is, you also need to talk to your students about reporting it. I know it seems like, it may be too grown up for them, or that's an awful lot to put on them, but just let them know that, sometimes, unfortunately, there are some bad people in this world. So we need to do our best to stop it, and we need their help with it, because kids talk about things with other kids that we don't always hear about. We know a lot of what goes on in this school, but I can guarantee you there's probably things going on in this school that we don't know about that the kids do, because kids talk. So just have a short talk with them. It doesn't need to be anything long. It doesn't need to be, real in-depth conversation. But just let them know if they're ever worried or if they have any concerns, that they just need to let an adult know, okay? But make sure that they don't try to do anything about it. Let them know that they need to tell an adult. I don't want any students getting hurt because of this. So, all right. So now that we've gone over the different evacuation procedures and what to look for, over the next week, we're going to start having some drills over this. We're going to do an evacuation drill for the fire, plus one for the mobiles, or as if there's a bomb threat, so the people from the mobiles can come inside. We will do a lockout. We probably won't do much with the lockout because that's more of a school day just goes on like normal. We lock the doors, nobody gets in or out. Now, with the lockdown, we will practice that, and with that, Maria will come over, like I said, and she'll say lockdown, and you need to get your students in, and it is very important when you practice it that you practice it as if it is a real thing. It's a real emergency, okay? Now, last thing before we move on to the next subject is you just need to make sure that you are very familiar with these policies, because it would be scary as a fifth grade teacher, but I feel like my kids would be, when I was in fifth grade, my kids would be a little easier to do it with, but think about those kindergartners or those first graders, and think of how scared they would be, and even some of the fifth graders would have been scared. So you need to make sure you're familiar with the lockdown codes and what you do in the procedures, and make sure that you stay calm, because they will be looking at you for guidance. You need to be strong for them. That way, they're not as scared. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions on this? All right. So, I'll send out an email in the next couple days, talking about when we'll do some of the evacuations and just reviewing some of the drills. And as always, if you have any questions, you can always come up and ask me, okay? All right. Thanks.